My heart sings when the people around me are happy. As a chef, I get to do that through my customers, seeing them enjoying a meal I carefully crafted for them. But far more meaningful than that is seeing the people around me, my coworkers, my line cooks, sous chefs, seeing them turn that corner in their career where they're at one with the craft, where you feel like you're most alive. And if you've been there before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it gives me goosebumps to think about, because not long ago, that was me. I was that place. And I look around and I want that for everyone. And I think it's there for everyone if we seek out and find it. We're at a place in history where we have more opportunity than ever before in the history of the world. But what do most of us do with that? Nothing. We feel like we're not good enough. We feel like our ideas don't matter. And maybe saddest and worst of all is that what we have to contribute doesn't really even add or change much to the value of our lives. So I wanted to talk to you today about 3 ideas, 3 principles that have helped me get to a point in my life where I love everything about what I do, and share the journey and those ideas and how you can apply them to your life, to your career, to your relationships, and find meaning along the way. So yes, I'm a chef now, but in a prior life, fresh out of grad school, I got a master's in marketing and went right into consulting. I was pumped. I was ready to start the American dream, that thing we're all looking for. And soon realized that within about 1.5 years that it sucked. And I couldn't sit at a desk the rest of my life. So after a lot of thinking and trying to figure things out, I made a change. And as a result, I said, I'm going to become a chef. I worked in restaurants all the way through my college and high school days. And since then, I've been so excited and, like I said before, felt really just alive with everything I do. And it's so meaningful to me, but at the same time, some 6 months ago, I came to a similar crossroads. Maybe not a crossroads per se, but a point of frustration. I was at a point in my career where I'd accomplished certain things. I felt like I was successful, but the people around me in my life didn't really appreciate or didn't quite understand the life I'd chosen for myself. I recently started a company that essentially failed, that I'd put a bunch of money into, a bunch of energy, as well as I was working 60+ hours a week at my restaurant, which was barely profitable at the time. And they're saying, what, you're working your ass off to do all this stuff, and where are you? Like, what's happening? Where's your time going? Where's your energy going? And I couldn't articulate to them how meaningful it all was to me. So I sat down one night. Have you ever had one of these Jerry Maguire moments? I locked myself in the office at the restaurant, shut off my phone, and just started writing. And 8 hours later, the sun's coming up, and I had written a letter to chefs. There was just as much for them as I think it was for myself. Describing what it meant to be a chef, to connect with what we do, to try and do something meaningful, to deal with the hardships and struggles and challenges we all face. But it was uplifting, and I was excited to share it. So I posted on medium.com, which is a blog sharing platform. And the first week or 2, it got 50 or 100 views. So I'm like, this is really good. I know somebody will enjoy it. Why isn't anybody reading this? Well, about a week later, those 50 or 100 views went to 1,000, then 3,000. And a week later, it was getting 80, then 100,000 views a day, which felt pretty awesome. And as a result, I was getting emails from all over the world, Asia, Europe, Australia, people saying, thank you so much for articulating what it meant to be a chef so I can share this with my family and the people around me. It was chefs, and it was culinary students, it was instructors, retired chefs. But then there's also a certain number of these folks that email me who thought that I was, I don't know, the chef whisperer. Like I had it all figured out because I was at that point in my career. It was parents saying, would you mind emailing my son or daughter? They're at a point in their career where they need some help and some encouragement. So I did. I'm happy to. I responded to every single one of the 500 or so emails I got. but also people just asking if they should find a new job, if I could hire them, all sorts of things. People in Asia asking if I could sponsor them. And I wish I could, but unfortunately, it's a small restaurant. Anyway, long story short, I was able to connect with these people, and they were able to connect with me. And it started getting my mind going and asking the important questions, those questions a lot of us are kind of too scared to ask. And I naturally started at a place that we're all after, which is success. What does success mean? The definition says that's accomplishing what is intended or desired. It's pretty self-explanatory. Feels good to accomplish things. But what if the journey getting there doesn't leave the right trail behind you? Or in other words, you get to 70 or 80 at a point in your life and realize, wow, this is it? I thought there was more to it than what I have here. So I thought about success and how it applied to my life and all of our lives, and tried to honestly and earnestly answer these questions people are asking me. And as Steve Jobs says, you can only connect the dots looking backwards. So I started doing that, starting with some of my earliest childhood memories. Growing up in Atlanta, we didn't experience a lot of snow, or the harshest of winters. But if you maybe remember from 2014, the ice storm that had the entire city on gridlock, I actually experienced it from Virginia, many miles away on CNN. But heard crazy stories. And anyway, growing up, my siblings and I, we lived close to a golf course, so we'd head over with our sleds in hand, and we'd sled down the local golf course. And I was always that crazy guy who would kind of throw his sled down, take a running head start, and then head face down, looking something like this. I did make it to the bottom eventually, and then it was time to come back up. And as an 8-year-old, you're looking back up, and it's like, man, Mount Everest is right here in front of me. And so you start climbing. And then there's always that one jackass who goes out of his way to try and steer his way into knocking you over. And that jackass was usually my brother. So once I decided I was done with his games and his antics, I would climb back up the hill and start getting some artillery together to start a snowball fight. And anybody that has a sibling, or especially an older brother, knows how good it feels to hit him right in the square in the jaw with a snowball. The only problem is then you have to haul home hoping he can't catch up to you. But I look at this as a metaphor, as an analogy to the way a lot of us live our lives. We have these goals and these desires that we're looking to achieve, and we achieve them, and then we find ourselves at the bottom, have to work our way all the way back up, achieve something else, and then the same thing happens. So it looks something like this graph here. We accomplish certain things along the way, but then find ourselves in the struggle. As we all know, Murphy's Law comes into play. The stock market crashes. The AC unit breaks. A loved one gets sick. So it looks more like this, or at least feels like this. So what if there's a way to enjoy the journey, enjoy the process, to appreciate being at the top when we're there with the people around us? Because these things aren't going anywhere. They'll always be there. They might morph and change shapes, but they're not going anywhere. And you ask anyone who's accomplished anything big or important to them in their life, and they'll tell you it wasn't without struggle, it wasn't without the obstacles, but those obstacles helped make it meaningful, help make the journey worthwhile. So these 3 ideas I have, these 3 principles, connect with that idea. It's connecting, committing, and adding value, which is being generous. Start with connecting. It's important to connect with the work that's meaningful to us, to find the things in our life that's out there in the world, in our communities, our relationships, whatever it might be, and seeing how I can best take the view I have of the world and connect with it and find meaning there, which takes being self-aware, knowing who I am, what my strengths are, my weaknesses. Like I said, I'm not going to sit at a desk all day. I get to use my hands. But knowing who we are, that also takes listening. It takes listening to what's out there and how we can best connect with it in the world and ourselves. As a chef, I can order a case of tomatoes from across the country. They might have been shipped 2 weeks ago, pulled off the vine a month ago. I can make a salad with that. Or I can go to the local farmer's market, meet the farmer, see the beautiful heirloom tomatoes, and make a salad as well. One that speaks about who I am, that helps show a bit about what I think about the world. And make a salad that looks like this. But again, it takes connecting and listening to what the world's telling us and how we can offer our unique vision of the world to that. If you can't connect with what you're doing, you'll never feel fulfilled on the way. Which leads to the next thing, which is committing. We all commit to things in life. What does that mean? It means going all in, pushing all your chips in the pot and saying, this is what I stand for, an idea, a movement, whatever it might be. It's showing what we stand up for and believe in. Bumper stickers is a great example. They're somewhat permanent, but they don't serve any real practical purpose aside from telling the world around us what this is who I am. They don't save money, conserve energy. They don't add value to the car, that's for sure. They represent who we are. Same thing with hashtags and social media. So the real challenge is committing and communicating in a way that's real, that applies to our lives on a much more broad and important scale in our relationships, in our work, in our communities. When we show up, when we communicate, the world sees who we are. When I became a chef, I committed to that life. The people around me were able to see that I was alive, that I was doing work that mattered to me, that was important. And you look at all the businesses out there, the brands, the companies, the Apples, the Zappos, the Tom Shoes, the Teds. They give us a chance to connect with them because we know who they are. People are able to connect with that part of themselves that represents what those companies are offering as well. But why is this even important? Why does it matter? This is the same place that allows for employees to become team members and military workers to become a band of brothers. It leads to trust. We find people out there that believe the same thing we do, and we can trust each other. Which leads to the third and final of these principles, which is generosity. It feels good to be generous, which is great. We're biologically wired that way. But what does it even mean to be generous? Pardon my ADD with these slides. It means the readiness to give more than was expected. I look at that definition and I see two components to it. There's the giving more than expected part. But there's also the readiness, which I think is where a lot of us get it wrong. I'll do this for you if you do this for me. No, it's offering something, expecting nothing in return. And in turn, it creates this cycle where they see what we're offering, that we're giving, and in return, they are more willing to get on board with what we have to offer. And it just goes around and around. And at the same time, like I said, it feels good. Then we do more of it. So there's three ideas of connecting, committing to and communicating, and then being generous with it and with who we are. It makes us feel fulfilled along the way, wherever we are in the journey. At the end of our lives, we all have some sort of story to tell. And I think so many of us think our story has to be perfect. But that's not the goal. There's no perfect story. There's no happily ever after. The goal is to make a story worth reading. And I learned this a hard way when I was 14. My mother passed away after a 5-year bout with cancer. But along the way, she was positive. She always had a smile on her face. And she taught me a lot about not just life, but actually living. Something so many of us just goes right over our head. Her favorite quote was, "Life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it." We have choices every single day that determine where we're going. So how are you showing up to your life, your relationship, your community? The things that are important to you. Are you connecting with them? If you are you really committing to it and saying, this is what I stand for, and I don't know if it's going to work or not, but I'm going to give it a shot? I think if you do, if you can connect to these ideas, you'll see at the end of the day that the journey is far greater than the destination. So I beg you and implore you to look at your life and where you are and ask yourself, what makes my heart sing? Thank you very much.